And now to the closing bell, and the markets are roaring higher. The S&P is actually approaching 4,000, so there are records in sight. The markets are strong. The Dow's just coming off its tops, but nothing really to be concerned about. A strong bullish push to the day and the events of the day behind the numbers. The room where it happens, Joe Biden has signed the COVID relief bill into law at the White House. The checks will start to roll. Defying gravity, the stock market's the records, and it's on the back of that monetary stimulus. And the lights go out on Broadway. Tonight, we mark 1 year since the shutdown of New York's theatre industry. We are live in New York tonight. On Thursday, it's the 11th of March. I'm Richard Quest, and I mean business. Good evening. It is 1 year since the world turned upside down here in New York and everywhere else. It's a year since the WHO declared coronavirus to be a pandemic, and a year since virus shut our businesses, has kept us inside our homes and stopped us from being together. Of course, the toll has been immense in human terms and in economic ones. And tonight, we're going to focus on one industry right here in New York. No, it's not the financial industry, it's Broadway. And the reason is because it sums up our collective plight. A plight that's struggled to keep the lights on and yet still offers the promise of hope for the future. A plight that's been forced from its biggest stage, an industry that's in trouble and, of course, still reminds us of the joys of coming together. So tonight, we're celebrating Broadway, 1 year since the shutdown. 1 year ago today, the Great White Way went dark, and the lullaby of Broadway fell silent. This iconic industry faces its biggest crisis in history. According to the Broadway League, nearly 100,000 people make their livelihoods on Broadway. Close to 15 million people visited its theatres. In 2019, the year before the shutdown, there were billions and billions of ticket sales in dollars and money for the New York economy. So tonight you're going to hear from a cast of influential voices on this special edition of the show. Rachel Bay Jones is with us, an actress that's won the industry's biggest awards. Louise Heron is the chief executive of the Sydney Opera House, which has been welcoming Broadway actors. And Damiel Wurtzel is the president of the Juilliard School, a performing arts conservatory here in New York. We start, though, with Broadway itself. It was among the first entertainment districts to close, and ironically, because of the nature of theatre, Broadway will be one of the last industries to reopen. A year after the curtain came down, I took a stroll down Schubert Alley off Times Square. I found a century economic engine dormant. When they closed the theatres in March of last year, no one really expected they would be shut for so long. But now, as the anniversary passes, and with no date in sight for reopening, Broadway and all the theatres around 42nd Street, it's as if time has stood still.
Maybe by Easter, maybe by May, maybe by June, Broadway thinks June. Broadway is a very important part of our economy. I get it. It's a lot of jobs. It's a big economic engine. But how can you say that?
We're going to work with Broadway. We're going to see if there's a way, but health and safety first.
The phantom of COVID has hit Broadway, maybe the hardest of all the live venues in America. Broadway is the beating heart of New York City's cultural life and one of the largest driving forces of our whole economy.
Coronavirus hit New York early and hit it hard. It halted the spectacular long run of hit shows like Wicked,
The Moulin Rouge,
and scuppered new productions such as Moulin Rouge. which recently made its debut, hoping to form its way into the great American songbook. All told, an estimated 97,000 jobs were suddenly gone. Philip Bursch, the CEO of Playbill, says it's created a lost generation of talent on Broadway. The theatres closed. They closed suddenly for understandable reasons. But what happened to all of this?
This came to a screeching halt. There is no one working in these theaters except the maintenance people, keep maintaining them and keeping them ready to reopen. But Broadway is in complete ice.
And how are they surviving?
Some are not. I think that there's probably a whole swath of people who are now leaving New York. They're back in their parents' basements and patiently waiting for Broadway to reopen.
The pandemic tamped out a Broadway that was booming. Ticket sales had never been higher. Now these theatres are figuring out how to reopen safely.
Broadway is an intimate environment. People work next to each other very closely. They sit next to each other. It's a very, very intimate exchange of collaboration and creativity.
Now, assuming you get that side of the equation right, economically, can you open these theatres and can you have productions with 30% capacity?
It's not possible. Broadway is a very low margin business on many levels. It is very expensive, very labor intensive, very talented people who have to be paid well. Broadway will open at 100% or it probably will not be able to open at all.
The sun will come out tomorrow.
Annie sings The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow. And Philip Bursch says you can bet your bottom dollar the theatres in New York will thrive once again.
Broadway will survive. We will open up again and it will boom.
How important is all of this to New York?
It is a $10 billion plus infusion into our economy.
Really?
It is a massive, massive employment issue. Broadway is the heart of New York City, and when Broadway reopens, it will send a national and international signal to the world that the pandemic has been beaten.
As the world's lights switch on one jab at a time, Broadway will remain dark for some months to come. But eventually, these lights will be switched on, returning Broadway to its proper place as the Great White Way. Richard Crest, CNN, Broadway, New York. Now, the last year, the cast of Dear Evan Hansen was getting ready for what ended up to be the show's last live performance. It opened in 2016 and went on to win 6 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. The original cast included the actress Rachel Bay Jones as Heidi Hansen, a performance that went on to win her a Tony Award. And Rachel's with me now from Pasadena, California, via Skype. How lovely to have you with us tonight as we not only remember what was, but also we look forward. For people like yourself, how devastating has it been, the closure of live theatre and the prospect of it not opening for some time?
It's so much a loaded question. It's been incredibly devastating in a lot of ways and unthinkable, really. I remember when it happened. You have to understand that, like, this whole the saying "the show must go on" is really a thing. Like, no matter what happened, Broadway would never close. Like, there were days sometimes where we would be like, "Please give us the day off. It's a terrible blizzard outside and no one can get into work," but the show went on. And I remember calling my mother to tell her that Broadway had shut down. And I think it was the moment that the coin dropped for her that the pandemic was real, because it's an unthinkable thing for Broadway to shut down. It seemed like one of those things that would go on forever.
And for those people involved in theatrical and performing arts, it's been it's difficult for everybody, but particularly for those who just haven't, like yourselves, who haven't been able to do your product, to do your livelihood, other than maybe some Zoom performances or the like. What have you been doing?
You know, like you said, there have been a lot of Zoom performances, a lot of teaching, a lot of benefits, you know, a lot of trying to help the community. And there's been a tremendous upswell of support inside the community to help each other. there's, some of us have been lucky enough to do an episode or two of a television show or things like that. But as far as the work that has been our bread and butter and a big part of how we identify ourselves as human beings, who we are, has been completely gone. It's completely disappeared.
What would you want before you would be comfortable going back on the stage with a live audience in front of you? We know we can open, but there's two sides to the equation. One is the safety side, and the other side is the confidence side of both the audience to come and the performers to perform. So what would you require?
I think vaccinations are huge. I think that's going to be an enormous issue for everybody. And I think once those happen, then I think we're all going to feel a lot more comfortable about doing it. It's been interesting that one of the things that has been the most dangerous thing to do in public is to sing. And for those of us who sing for a living, it's sort of squashed something inside of us. And I think it'll be a real joy to be able to do that again and to be in a room where people are singing and to be able to love it again,
I was reading that early in the pandemic, you and your family, you took time and you took moments to have gratitude. Which I find particularly significant since, you'd been shut out of your job, but you still found time for that moment of gratitude, which I guess is that we're all still here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's, to every day that we're breathing, every day that we're alive, it really does distill it down to the most basic. And when you said it's our livelihood, it's like it goes so far beyond for most, especially theater artists. It's like we don't do this for the money. We've gone through lean times. We are used to that. Most of our lives are about unemployment and looking for the next gig. And but this has really obviously extended so far into the unthinkable that it's made it so much more difficult, and it's become a real thing that we have to get through, that we have to remember the light, that the light at the end of the tunnel, whatever, all those things, but the things that we're grateful for just on the moment to moment minutes of our lives,
Let's finish on a very positive note. Along with that, what will you be looking forward to next? What production are you, even if it's not green-lighted yet, even if it's just something in the distance that somebody's mentioned, there's the possibility of going back on the stage in 2020, whenever. What can you tell us?
Oh, there's so many wonderful things. I mean, I know that we're all really looking forward to that. And I think what's going to happen is as soon as those floodgates open, we're all going to be pouring out and jumping up on stages. And I hope so much that audiences will come back and feel loved and be together and thrill in the joy of live performance again. We need it so much. We need it. So there's great stuff coming up, and really hoping for the productions that were supposed to happen. I was supposed to do a production on Broadway, and we're really, really hoping that that's going to come around again. So everybody keep your fingers crossed.
When it does, I'll be on the front row cheering. Thank you very much for joining us tonight from Pasadena. Now.